I'm gonna give y'all some life lessons. The reason why the youth of America has troubles these days, there's no pool halls for them to go hang out in. Of course, nowadays you probably couldn't because of all the meth heads and stuff in it and all that, creating all the drama. But back years ago, there used to be a pool hall up there in Kaiser, and it was in the back of Mary Short's Grill. We was up there one particular Friday night. It was me and my buddy Todd, and we in there and we shooting pool. I don't know how many pool tables they had, but they was a pile of them. Well, about this time, me and Todd shooting team against these other two boys that we know. We shooting pool, and I was standing there over in the corner, and I was propped up on my pool stick like that. About this time, I look over there in the corner, and there's this old dude done come in there. He had on these leather, I call them Indian moccasin boots that come up to his knees. They laced up, look just like Indian shoes down there at the bottom. He had on carpenter pants like this, had the hammer hoop and all that. He had on this old silky ball jacket, like thing you see all the softball teams would wear them. He had that on. He had this old long stringy hair, and that son gonna stayed over going like that. Didn't have two teeth in his whole head. He's over there all spazzed out. About that time, that son gun leaned up and leaned out the door like that. When he did, I looked there in his back pocket, and there was a revolver. I said, I took my pool stick and I reached over and I poked old Todd. I said, hey. He said, what? I said, you see old Mountain Hoosier over there? He said, yeah. I said, well, Mountain Hoosier has a gun. I said, it's either a .357 or a .44, but it is a revolver, and it's a pretty big gun. I said, so I don't know about you, but I think I'm ready to go. And Todd said, yep, me too. And he turned around and hit the 8-ball, knocked it in by accident, and turned around and said, all right, guys, we done, we gone, we out of here. And I walked across the pool hall. There was one of my uncles, he was in there and had his two young'uns in there, and they couldn't have been 8, 9 years old. And then there was my cousin, Tater, he was in there. This old boy we called Mule, he was in there. And I walked back there at the corner and I said, listen, guys, I said, if y'all smart, y'all leave. Be behind us when we leave. Oh, what are you leaving for? I said, just trust me, if you're smart, you leave. Well, we tell a few other peoples, if you smart, you leave. The old Mountain Hoosier over there, he's all spazzed out, eyeballs going every which way. About this time, we go out the door. As we go out the door, there's old Brady, buddy of mine, standing there smoking a cigarette. Brady said, where you going, Cook? I said, Brady, I said, if you're smart, you be behind us and be leaving. Because, it's going to get ugly in here in a few minutes. Brady didn't understand what I was talking about. Well, we had been gone about 10 minutes. Now, mind you, it was right there around Christmas time because there was some other guys that was at their company's Christmas parties and stuff. Anyway, they'd left and they'd come back to the pool hall. Well, everybody's in there, and there's this old boy named Udden that was in there. Udden, big meth head, he's in there, and he got to talking to this old gal. And about this time, this other old gal got jealous, and there them two rips went to fighting right there in the middle of the pool hall. They were pulling hair and screaming and kicking and carrying on all over Udden. Now, guess who's gonna bring law and order to the pool hall? Mountain Hoosier. He pulls out that gun, boom, through the ceiling, and people start screaming and running. My buddy Dunce took off running, he grabbed old Mountain Hoosier and he said, hey, he said, listen, Duggar, said, you got to put that gun up. Old Duggar looked at him, and that's Mountain Hoosier's name. Old Duggar looked at him and said, I ain't going to shoot you. Donnie Dude said, that gun don't know who I am. Said, you just pulling the trigger. Said, you're crazy. Well, Mountain Hoosier squeezed off another shot. Boom! Through the ceiling again. Well, down there on the end, where my uncle and them was, old Mule done got running around panicking. People screaming, what we gonna do? What we gonna do? And they had this paneling, little old thin paneling like you see in these mobile homes. And old Mule hollered, this is what we gonna do. And my cousin Tater hit the wall, and when it popped out, Mule grabbed it and tore a section of the wall down, and they all run behind this paneling. Now, mind you, you can shoot a pellet gun through this paneling, but here's 25 people hid behind this dummy wall. Well, Dunce comes running around through there, and he takes off running. He dives over the counter where the cash register is. And when he's in midair, he looks down, and there's Brady and this girl Tasha laying there behind the counter hiding. And Donnie said, Dunce said he had to do this little extra kick like in midair to sail over him. He hit the floor and he scrambled around there. He's laying there and said, all of a sudden he hears something go across the floor, and said he's laying there. Here comes that gun, and he goes, shoot, and it stops and it's pointing right at him. Dunce grabbed that gun, he jumped up and said, God almighty, I got to hide this. And he takes off running. He goes back behind that wall, and there everybody is, and all they can see is his silhouette holding the gun. And they hollered, oh my God, he got the gun, we got to kill him. Dunce hollers, no, I'm just trying to hide the gun. We got the gun from the shooter. So anyway, they fight around there a few minutes, they get it calmed down. And lo and behold, if not out in the parking lot, if them girls didn't start fighting again, and this time the fools break out a deer rifle and start shooting across the parking lot at the cars. Well, mind you, I didn't know nothing about it. Well, the next day, I'm up at the crossroads at the body shop. I'm up there helping work. Here some of my buddies come sliding in there, and they said, man, where was you at? Was you there when all the shooting went on? I said, no. They got to tell me what all went on. And I looked at them and I said, boys, I said, there's one thing in this world that you need to remember. If I walk up and I tell you, listen, if you're smart, you're going to be behind me and leave. You better leave, or two, if I tell you a rooster will pull a freight train, you get to harness and hook that baby up, because it'll take it on down the road. That's the problem with the youth of America. They ain't had to deal with no pool hall fights and stuff like that. So just remember, let's make America great again and bring back the pool halls. Give a thumbs up and a like. Thank you very much.